It is a big fight week for PFL, both figuratively and literally battle of the giants, two huge heavyweights going at it. Renan Ferreira, the PFL heavyweight champion from 2023, gets his opportunity against probably the baddest man on the planet in Francis Ngannou, the undethroned, is that a phrase? I don't know, UFC heavyweight champion. He never got beat for that title. He's coming in to the PFL, stepping back into the cage for the first time in quite some time after a foray into boxing. So why not talk to another big man, Stefan Struve? How are you, mate?
Andy Shep, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, man. It's going to be a good fight week. This is being billed as the biggest fight week in PFL history. When you look back at other cards like the Battle of the Bellator versus PFL card from back in February, do you think this is a bigger card for PFL than that one?
Yeah, 100%. Francis is making his debut for PFL. He still is the Lineal, as you say, the heavyweight champ. You know, he was never beaten for that belt, and then he's fighting another monster, a very scary man. Rightly so, to bet all the giants. So, and the rest of the card ain't bad either. You know, so
it's a great card. It's a great card. I think from top to bottom. I think earlier in the night we're going to see some fighters that I think if you're coming into this card being a casual MMA fan, you might not recognize, but I think looking at the fights they're going to be offered up, they're going to be some very fun fights, very entertaining fights. But Stefan, I want to talk to you about something very specific today. The betting odds that PFL put out earlier this week. It's the early odds. First up, are you a betting man yourself? Do you like a little flutter?
I don't bet myself. I understand the odds, of course, but I have never bet on an MMA fight. So,
well, hey, this weekend could be the first time. But look, I want to take a look at these fights and just get your thoughts on what the odds are. And hey, look, if someone was going to bet on this or put some money down, which one might be the easiest one for them to have a go at? First of all, let's look at that main event. Francis Ngannou is a minus 305 favorite against Renan Ferreira at plus 245. So not a great deal of difference there. They're not huge swing odds. Of course, Francis is the favorite, but it's not a gargantuan sway in his favor. What do you make of those?
I think that he's in my opinion, he's a pretty big favorite when they line him at minus 300. They look at him as a pretty big favorite. For me, if it was really close, it'd be like minus 100, plus 100, you know. And especially in a fight like this with two big dudes who have power, who can knock each other out at any moment in the fight. Those are really interesting odds. Of course, you know, Francis is the favorite, and you know, for a reason. He hasn't fought in MMA for a while, you know, and a good thing for him is that Renan has been inactive the last year after winning the PFL championship. So that could work in his favor. He's fought, he has boxed, but he's coming back after, you know, a pretty long layoff. Some tragedy, of course, what we all know about. How is that gonna, you know, affect him? But for me, the most important thing when looking at those odds, I understand that they have him as the favorite, but when you fight Renan Ferreira, who is 6'8", usually when you fight someone who's bigger than you, that means you're the faster guy. But I think that the faster fighter in this fight is Renan Ferreira. He's incredibly athletic. I've never really seen anybody move, you know, at that size. He's a monster. When you walk into him in person, he's like, I'm big, but
if you're calling him a monster, that says something.
And then, you know, when he starts moving, it's almost like you're watching a movie. Like it's something that shouldn't happen. You know, he shouldn't be able to move like that. So with those kind of odds, that's, you know, I'd be tempted. You know, I told you I've never bet on an MMA fight, but I definitely get tempted to put money on Renan Ferreira with those odds.
What do you take of some of the comments that have been made this week? I think it was Tom Aspinall on Ariel's show this week said that Renan, he doesn't consider him an elite heavyweight. I think he cites the fact that Ante Dillier beat Renan relatively easily a couple of years ago, and that's a training partner of Tom.
Yeah.
Of course, since then, Renan's made a few changes in his camp, and I think we saw him last year looking incredible. So what do you make of those comments that this current Renan Ferreira isn't an elite heavyweight?
I think that at this point in his career, how he looked in the season he won, beating Goltsov in the finals, and if you look at Goltsov the last year, that's a great example how the progression Goltsov has made in his career, how good he's looking right now, how complete he's looking right now. The same thing can be said for Renan Ferreira. You learn from every fight, you get better after every fight, and that's why he won the championship that year. He got better and better, and he understands more and more what he can do in that cage, and recognizing the moments when he needs to um, let his hands go, when he needs to be a little more patient. So I definitely think he's up there with the best heavyweights in the world.
We saw him last out again at that Bellator versus PFL champs versus champs, beating Ryan Bader in pretty spectacular fashion. Now, Ryan Bader is an incredible fighter. Yes, he may be at the back end of his career, but Bader is a tough test for most people.
Yeah.
What did you make of that last performance by Renan?
Especially when you look at the comments from Tom Aspinall, Ryan Bader is the kind of fighter that gave him issues in the past. He has lost some fights where people would wrestle with him, and of course that is not his biggest strength, but that makes this fight even more interesting. Although Francis has shown that he can wrestle, I don't think he's going to do that. It's two monstrous heavyweights going in there who can knock each other out, and I think Francis's style is for Ferreira the perfect matchup, in my opinion. That's exactly the kind of fighter he would like to be matched up. If you look at the Anthony Joshua fight, Francis against Joshua, he struggled with the speed of Joshua, the speed of Renan Ferreira, the athleticism. Those are is among his biggest weapons. So it's going to be very interesting that way.
That knockout from Anthony Joshua, it's the first time that Ngannou's looked close to human. I mean, we rewind a little further to that Tyson Fury fight. Francis took some shots, including a massive elbow to the face, and didn't move. I mean, the guy looked like a machine. It was a violent clinical stoppage from AJ. How do you think that's affected Francis from that point to now, and how do you think it's going to affect him walking into that fight on Saturday night?
Of course, that was boxing. This is MMA, and he did very well against Tyson Fury. I think style-wise, Joshua is just a very bad matchup for him. Speed kills in that fight. It really did for Francis. He couldn't deal with the speed of Joshua. So that's why I'm so interested in this fight with Ferreira, as I just explained. When you look at this, so many different ways to look at it. But I just can't wait to see how it's going to play out.
And with Francis, if he wins this fight, what do you think he does next? Do you think he goes for another run within the world of MMA? Or do you think he pops back to boxing? Where do you think his head will be at if he is successful?
I think there's definitely some interesting matchups for him in the PFL for opponents. I'd love to see him fight MMA. MMA is my passion. Francis can do whatever and I'll watch, but in an MMA cage, that's where I want to see him. With boxing, I'm really happy for him that he got the box. He did really well against Tyson Fury. He lost against Anthony Joshua, which is not a shame at all. Who's one of the best heavyweights in the world right now. But MMA is where he became champ with the UFC. MMA is where we want to see him with the PFL. He's the scariest man on the planet. And I'm just really happy he's back in the cage.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all want to see him have another run in the world of mixed martial arts.
That man with those small gloves,
man.
those forearm. Francis with forearm. You see the shape he's in right now? He looks incredible shape. So you can bet that he wants to make a statement in his return. So
yeah, and he's spoken about his motivation with the tragedy he experienced early this year. He said he could have retired after that. Of course, he lost his child, for those who don't know. But it's actually spurred him on, and he wants to kind of build his legacy and do this do this for his family. I think it goes without saying what happens to Renan Ferreira if he's victorious. He becomes a superstar, and he gets thrown into the mix of the conversation of, okay, is he one of the baddest men on the planet? If Ngannou were to lose, where does he go from here?
It's a good question, and I think still, if he loses, there's other interesting fights at PFL. I'm really impressed with Goltsov this year. Popov has looked incredible. So those would be interesting matchups for sure. You could have him fight anybody, in MMA. Just I'm really happy he's back. But like, no matter what, when two big men enter a cage, one is going to lose. You know what I mean? So, and we'll see what's going to happen for them in the future. For Ferreira, it would be incredible, of course, beating Francis. Um, yeah, there's just so many ways to it's so interesting.
I think it's also win or lose. It's how the fight plays out. Of course, if
Uh-huh.
Francis goes in there and just sparks Renan in the first 30 seconds, okay, great.
Yeah.
Francis has still got that killer power and one-shot knockout. But I think if it's a competitive fight and both show their mettle, both show resilience, both have to come back from adversity,
Uh-huh.
then I think both guys can walk out of this with their stock elevated, particularly Renan. I mean, even if Renan loses, if he can really stand and trade with Francis and show he can stand with, as you say, the lineal heavyweight champion, he's going
Yeah.
to come out in better shape than he's gone into. So look, it's an intriguing match all around. That is top of the card, of course. Battle of the
Yeah.
Giants, huge men, huge card Saturday night. So our co-main event Saturday night: Chris Cyborg versus Larissa Pacheco. Right, Chris Cyborg, a legend in MMA, the male or female side of the bracket.
Yeah.
In women's MMA, one of the greatest of all time, no doubt. She's going up against Larissa Pacheco, who is the woman who dethroned Kayla Harrison
Hmm.
for the PFL title. And again, is just a woman who's really grown into herself in
Yep.
recent years. Looking at this, relatively close odds. Cyborg is the underdog with
Yep.
plus 105, Pacheco minus 125. What do you make of those?
I understand it. I was a little surprised that Cyborg was the underdog, but it's close. It can easily swing to her being the favorite, depending how many people are going to put money on that. But same thing with the main event, man. When you have two fighters who have the power to knock out each other, like Cyborg and Pacheco do as well, it's risky business betting money on a fight like that. Anything can happen at any given time, but especially with these kind of styles and the kind of power both women have.
Do you think that perhaps youth is obviously on the side of Pacheco? You think that's what the odds makers are looking at?
Uh, in the end, nobody's gonna beat time, But watching Cyborg fight her last couple fights, she doesn't show any signs of slowing down. Like, she has taken out anybody they have put in front of her. And same goes for Larissa Pacheco, who I think really is in her prime right now. Cyborg has been in her prime for a long time because she's just been going nonstop. Just that loss against Amanda Nunes, but you can, I think those three women, those are probably the most powerful strikers in MMA in that division, 135, 145. And Kayla Harrison's up there too, but she's a different style of fighter, of course. So for a long time, you'd say that it'd be hard to find another fighter like Cyborg. And then there was Larissa Pacheco, who beat, as you said, Kayla Harrison and knocked out a whole bunch of other women. So incredibly impressive, and style-wise, I think the fans are going to be treated in this one as well.
When you look at the upper weight classes in the women's division, 135, 145, where do you think someone like Larissa stands in the sort of the world class kind of rankings there?
Um, I could, I believe she could be a champion in the UFC as well. Watching that fight, Raquel Pennington and Pena, like 2 weeks ago, she can beat both those women 100%.
Well,
There's no doubt in my mind that if she would fight them, that she's got a really good chance of winning those fights.
do you think we could perhaps see a changing of the guard in this sort of upper level of the women's division this Saturday? Again, Cyborg has been such a mainstay for so long, such a scary figure. Fights with Rousey, fights with, again, Kayla have all been mentioned, never really come to fruition. However, if Pacheco wins, does she then take that mantle of the scary, scary female bomb dropper and move
Uh,
forward with
yeah, 100%. I think obviously it would be the biggest win of her career.
bigger than
But
Kayla?
if she knocks out Cyborg, that's bigger than beating Kayla Harrison. I think not by much, but knocking out Cyborg, that would really top it off for Larisha, I think. And that would really, I already know that she's one of the best fighters on the planet in her division, but I think for the outside world, people know Cyborg. Even like casual fans know who Chris Cyborg is. So if she goes out there and knocks out Cyborg, I think that would be huge for her and the PFL.
Huge co-main event. That's what I'm really looking forward to seeing. I think it's going to be a real telltale matchup of how Larissa Pacheco has developed over the last few years. But let's move further down the card now, Stefan. This is an intriguing one. Rematch we got coming up here. Johnny Eblen versus Fabian Edwards. Eblen, big old favorite here, minus 625 against Fabian at plus 455. What do you make of those odds first up?
That's crazy. And of course, he did win that fight. What is it, like 2 years ago? Year and a half, 2 years ago? But Edwards had some really good moments in that fight. He cut him open. He had that huge cut on his face, right above his eyebrow, I believe. And I really, what I said, because I was commentating on that fight, and what I said was, if he doesn't end it in this round, they're gonna stop it because it was a really bad cut. Like it was
Hmm.
massive. So, and especially with the qualities the ability Edwards has, being such an underdog, I'd be tempted, like
This is the
uh,
one. This is the
yeah,
one, Stefan, that jumped out at me. Again, look, Johnny Eblen, one of the best middleweights in the entire world,
I
undoubtable
think
about
the
that.
best. I think,
Yeah,
yeah, no, easily like, yeah, no, you can never say the best because there's other guys, and unfortunately, there's multiple organizations who have the best fighters. So some of those fights will not happen, especially not in the near future. Maybe in the a little further away. But Eblen, in my opinion, the most complete middleweight on the planet.
and we saw him last out against Impa Kasunganai, again back in Riyadh in February. And Impa, Impa is another athlete. It's a shame he's not on this card. I hope they've got something
Uh,
big planned for him coming up. Actually, of course, he's in the
Championship,
championship, of
yeah.
course. But again, I feel like Impa Kasunganai is now one of PFL's big stars. And if you don't know
Uh-huh.
about him, you're going to know about him pretty soon. But he really pushed Eblen to the absolute limit. And a lot of people said that actually it was Impa stepping off the gas. Impa kind of lost that fight himself rather than Eblen taking it from him. We can debate about that all day long. But Eblen looked human in that fight.
Yeah.
And again, I think Fabian Edwards, you say that last fight, it wasn't a million miles off. So when you look at the odds here, I don't know what the odds makers are looking at in this fight to make Eblen such a big favorite.
I think they look at Johnny Eblen as what we just said, one of the best or the best middleweight on the planet, and he's going to win over Edwards. Um, but yeah, I agree with you 100%. It wasn't very far off. He cut him open very bad, and he's got a great skill set, very dangerous striker, and he's still getting better and better. That shutdown against Gegard Mousasi, very impressive. Um, so I think the best is still to come for Fabian Edwards, in my opinion.
I agree. I've followed Fabian's career from the very start, all the way through Bamra and onwards. One thing Fabian has been guilty of on occasion is he's been a little gun shy. He's been in some fights where he's not
He
thrown
wasn't
up.
in that fight with Eblen though. He was not.
Exactly, yeah,
So
exactly. And do you think that? What do you think he needs to do on this occasion to take the win?
of course you need to be smart with your output because else, when Eblen switches to his wrestling, it's going to be very difficult to deal with that. Of course, he's going to tire you out, and he can do that for 5 rounds easily. He can do that for 10 rounds, I think. But of course, you need to let your hands go and that left leg, of course, which is as dangerous as his brother's left leg. I think a aggression will be key in this, and you need to be a little lucky, of course, but being lucky starts with having that mindset of whenever I see the opportunity, I'm gonna throw this or I'm gonna throw that.
You talk about that aggression, Stefan, and we just rewind a little bit back to me mentioning Fabian being a little bit gun shy. Do you think the success he had in that first fight with Eblin will make him less prone to do that? He was so aggressive in that first fight. He had success.
Uh-huh.
When he's gun shy, you will know better than I, but is that because you're afraid of the counter? Because you're afraid of something they're going to come back at you at? Because
Well,
he's felt what Eblin's got to offer, do you think he will be able to push forward more and trust himself?
yeah, I think he should, and I think he should take a lot of how do you say it? I think he should be confident because of that fight, because he had a lot of success, and in the end, he did get countered from by Eblin, and it's not just the wrestling of Johnny Eblin that makes him very dangerous, as we saw in that fight. He's got real knockout power as well, but I think that I don't think we've ever seen Johnny Eblin come forward that aggressive with that kind of power, because he was looking for something big, because he knew in the back of his head that he had to finish that fight in that round, because if they would have gone to the break, I think the doctor would have stopped it. So, when you fight with that kind of aggression, the kind of aggression Fabian was fighting with, you're always, the opportunity to get counter is always there. But I think he needs to fight like that. I think that's the only way um, to be successful in this fight for him. Because if he's gonna be tentative again, gun shy, he's gonna allow Eblin to come in and just wrestle, and those openings will be there a lot more for Eblin to just go there.
Yeah, I think again, as someone who's followed Fabian's career since the start, I think this is his opportunity to welcome himself to the world stage. You said earlier we can debate about who is the best middleweight in the world. There's multiple promotions with athletes who can try and lay to that claim, but whoever wins this fight is going to be up there,
Yep.
undeniable. All right, let's work our way back down the card a little bit. We've got Hussein Khadimagomev against Zafar Mozen, two guys stepping into PFL for the first time. Huge opportunity.
Yep.
Khadimagomev is a big favorite. Do you know much about these guys? Have you seen them before?
I've seen a little bit of both. Of course, there's a reason why Kali Magomedov is such a big favorite, and when when um, when you fight a guy with a last name like that, you just get ready to wrestle. But not just that, he's got a lot of finishes on his record, submissions, knockouts. So he's only a great wrestler. He works off that and always looks for the finish. So just another very impressive fighter coming from those regions. And this is for him the big opportunity to make a name for himself on a card like this, of course.
Yeah, of
Same
course.
goes for his opponent, though. Who's a big underdog. But
anyone on this card, it's an opportunity because I think with Francis's name top of the bill, his foray into boxing, along with everything else he's done over the last few years, he's built a huge fan base, which is sort of transcending mixed martial arts. So I think the eyes on this entire card is going to be beneficial to everyone involved. Kadi Magomev is minus 600 and Mosen is plus 440. So big favorite there for Hussein. Let's just jump down now to the fight, which seems it's going to open our main card. And this again is an intriguing
opener.
Yeah.
Yes,
AJ McKee, who's a minus 205 favorite, against Paul Hughes, who's a plus 170. When this matchup was made, some people said to me, I don't know why they're making this match. They're throwing Hughes into this too early. He's going to get eaten up by AJ. But as the weeks have gone on, people have been whispering, some saying publicly, that actually this could be a coming out parade for Hughes. Yep. What's your take on this?
100%. I'm very happy that Hughes is finally signed by a major promotion. And I'm really looking forward to see him fight McKee. I've been following Hughes for a long time now, and just incredibly impressed with his skill set. Very complete fighter, beautiful boxing, great wrestling defense, very good grappler as well. So, same thing as we just said on this card. To have an opponent like that, if you make a statement in this fight, being Paul Hughes, that'd be huge for your career, and he's got all the skill to do it. I think in the stand-up, McKee, he's got great kicks, but boxing, I think a lot of people are going to be very, surprised by the level of boxing Hughes has got. Beautiful counters, and I think he belongs on that level, fighting those kind of opponents.
When we talk about earlier, especially in that main event, it's sometimes how you win or lose more than the result in itself. People can come out looking better, even if Hughes were to not get his hand raised in this one. If he shows he can hang with someone like AJ McKee, who is just, I mean, anyone who follows AJ's career will know that he is just one of the best on the planet. We saw him actually back in Riyadh, back in February, once again, just tying up Clay Collard, who is tough as nails. Just timing.
He made it look easy.
So, more than easy. It just looked like completely different levels, and Clay Collard is an absolute warrior. So for anyone to start hanging with AJ is a real achievement. And those odds are, they're not too tight, but they're not, we're not looking at Francis odds. We're not looking at Eblin Fabian odds. You think they're fair odds on that one?
I think people are definitely aware. The bookies are definitely aware of the skill set that Paul Hughes has, but of course, AJ McKee has got a lot of name value. He's been around for a long time. He could be the best homegrown fighter ever coming from Bellator, I think, because they really built him from the start. I think they've done a really good job with that, I really do think that he could be the best fighter they've ever done that route with. So just very interesting, and I can't wait to see the fight.
What do you think it says for Hughes if he does get his hand raised over AJ McKee? This is a guy who, this is his first big foray into a big company, former Cage Warriors champ, to come in to PFL, to step onto a pay-per-view card, again, the biggest card this company's ever had, and to beat someone like AJ McKee, that is a welcoming party, to say the least.
Yeah, 100%. And I think he deserves this. His fights in Cage Warriors were absolutely sensational. That division, he fought featherweight and lightweight, but mostly in the featherweight division. And he looked absolutely phenomenal in that division. Very talented division that is for Cage Warriors, with Jordan Fucinic and Morgan Charrier, some other really good names in there too. But definitely, if he can beat AJ McKee, that'd be huge. That'd be easily the biggest win of his career. But I know he's got the skill set to do that. So,
man, look, you say huge. It's a huge fight. That whole main card is stacked with name value, but I think also just stacked with intriguing fights and fights that I think we're going to deliver all the way through. 4 p.m. Eastern time, ESPN pay-per-view and on DAZN. Okay, Stefan, here we go. I'm going to give you, figuratively, not literally, $100, right? $100. You got one of these fights to put some money on. Who are you going to pick? You got Ngannou versus Ferreira, Cyborg, Pacheco. We got the long odds on Eblin and Edwards. Khadimagomedov versus Hussein, McKee versus Hughes. There's options. Are you going to go safe or are you going to go long?
I don't think there's safe bets in this, though, and that's what makes this card so fun. Because when I look at these, there's so many stories and there's so many possibilities. They're all finishers. Every single fighter on this card has got a lot of finishes. So man, really tough one.
100 notes slipping across the table to you, Stefan Struve. Where are you going to put them?
I am going to put them on Francis.
You're going to put them on Francis?
Yeah.
Minus 305. That's big.
I'm not going to make a lot of money, but whatever happens. But I want to see him make a successful comeback to MMA. I would love to see, after what happened to him the last year, be really good. Also, but if Ferreira wins, great for him too. I'd be happy for him too. But it would even only add more to the story of Francis Ngannou. We all know the story, where he's come from and what he's done for not only for himself but for the sport of mixed martial arts. Yeah, $100 on Francis.
I agree. I think MMA fans, a lot of people feel the same as you. They want to see Francis win. They want to see his his story continue. And as I said earlier, I think that Ferreira, even if he doesn't get the victory, if he shows he can hang with Ngannou, I think he can come out of this a bigger star going forward. Now, look,
100%.
I know you love to give as much as you like to take. So I'm going to take that little $100 back from you. Thank you very much.
There you go.
Thank you. Look, I'm going to go with Fabian Edwards. I'm going to try and make some money on this. Plus 455, as we just talked about. I think that
I know who's paying for dinner.
I think, look, it's going to be a tough test, and I think I would never advise anyone to bet against Johnny Eblen. We've seen time and time again, but I think it's going to be an intriguing fight. And I think if I'm trying to make that money stack, I think Edwards is the way to go on that. So look, I think either way, I think it's going to be an enthralling card. Lots of stories to come out of it, no doubt. William Ngannou continues dominance across the heavyweight division, and I think I'm looking forward to next week, Stefan, when if Francis does win, we'll see how he wins and what the conversations will be. What will the likes of John Jones, Tom Aspinall, all those names come out and start talking about? It'd be intriguing to see.
Yeah, 100%. And of course, you mentioned a couple names. It's unfortunate that those fights will probably not happen.
We can dream. We can dream.
Those are the fights everybody wants to see. It's such a shame that hopefully something's gonna change in the future. That those fights will be easier to make for the fans and for the fighters as well. Because if there's a better way for the fighters to make those kind of fights, Francis and John Jones, Francis and Tom Aspinall, those kind of fights, and especially when the fighters share more into what those kind of fights make, what they give financially, that'd be the best situation, of course.
I couldn't agree more with you. And I think what we've seen in boxing over the last 12 to 18 months, we start to see that these things which were once a distant dream can become true. I think, obviously, with the UFC and PFL being two very distinct promotions, it'll take even more to make them happen. But I think we're living in a time where maybe we could
not. I definitely believe that there's possibilities with things that are going on right now, and I think those kind of things are happening because people see that those kind of fights need to happen. Everybody wants to know, as we just said, like there's always that discussion: who's the best middleweight, who's the best light heavyweight. There needs to be one belt, just one belt where they fight for. Throw them in a cage, pay them a lot of money. Better for everybody.
You're preaching to the choir, my friend, but I think there's other people which will have more of a say. Look, Stefan, thank you for your time, mate.
Of course.
I'm looking forward to seeing how this all plays out. And yeah, whoever picks up the victory, dinner next time, my man.
Can't wait. I'm definitely watching this Saturday.
All right. Stefan, thank you for your time. And yeah, please, everyone, join in, watch along. Put your imaginary bets on. See if you're right. Some intriguing odds there. This Saturday, Battle of the Giants, the Zone and ESPN pay-per-view.